We won't listen to what they're saying. We know it's just love that we're giving to this place that we call our home. We can't change what's been done, but it's still our run. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light.
I am Sanjay Roy, the co-chair of the Catalyzing Change Week Programming Committee. Welcome to Catalyzing Change Week 2024. This is where we'll not just have conversations, but we'll actually see change. We'll see change makers, innovators within the social space. You'll meet government folks and funders. You'll see people who've done excellent good practice that we can learn from. And most importantly, it'll be a place to network, learn, exchange ideas. So do the Catalyzing Change Week 2024 and enjoy the experience.
Thank you very much indeed, Irene, for all your support in getting us going. Maybe if we can take the housekeeping slide down, that would be helpful. And a very warm welcome to everybody who has arrived at this webinar. You had many webinars to choose from, so we are delighted that you chose ours. And I can assure you that having chosen ours, you will not be disappointed. It will be great. We're going to have a very interesting discussion today on helping ourselves before we help others. It's one of those things that's axiomatic about social entrepreneurs, that social entrepreneurs often seem to feel, either in their organization or in regard to the beneficiaries that they're working with, that they have to always, as it were, be on point with those beneficiaries and so on. And yet, what about the individual or individuals themselves? What about the social entrepreneurs? How do they look after themselves? And what is it that's important about that? And what are the techniques actually that they might use? So there's much to discuss. And today we have a fantastic group of people who are going to work with you. We have Daniel Lobo, we have Daisy Rosales, we have Lauren Magoon, and we have Ertla Magnusdottir. And each of them in turn will come on and answer a question I'm going to put to them. And at the same time, they will also introduce themselves in a little bit more detail, which would be great. The question I wanted to put as we start this whole webinar is, what's been difficult about taking care of yourself, and how do you see this playing out at your organization? And so I wanted to start the round very quickly and just ask you, Daniel, whether you'd like to jump in and have a go at answering that question. And you've just got a few minutes, so don't think you've got 45 minutes, because that's not the case.
Damn it. Thank you so much. So Daniel, based in Bombay. I think this topic is really central to my life. I feel I've designed my life over the last 10 years, especially around well-being and really taking care of myself. The reason I started my organization 4 years ago was because of my own lived experience with really bad mental health. And it was incredible, worked with lots of individuals and organizations. But early last year, I realized that it was taking a big toll on my mental health, right? Ironically, because I was there saying, oh, we should take care of ourselves. And it was 3 years, took a toll on my mental health, my marriage, and just, my spirit in some ways. So I had to take the tough decision of saying, okay, let's pause and kind of let's see what happens in the future. Obviously, very difficult. But I think there are a couple of things that really helped me. And one was understanding and realizing, reflecting upon the fact that why I got into this space, why I'm in this space, is because because I care about it and I want to be of service. And this is not about me, right? And it's not about my organization. So that was helpful in one way. The other is one of my mentors said, when I found my purpose 20 years ago, and I realized that I need to have a 40-year horizon, right? And then that makes the journey a little easy, not easier, but it's more joyful and probably more, whatever. So I feel those two things have really helped me get to a space where now I feel my spirit is much lighter. My relationships are better. I'm working in this space and working with different people, and I'm in a good space at the moment. So it's a long answer to your question, but I hope that sums it up, Chris.
Thank you, Daniel. It's lovely to hear that your spirit is so much lighter. As a longtime friend of yours, that gives me great joy, real joy. May I ask you the same question, Lauren, which is just to remind you, what's been difficult about taking care of yourself, and how do you see it playing out in your organization? Over to you, Lauren.
Great, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Magoon. I work at a company called Damagi, which works globally. We build digital tools for frontline workers, like community health workers, just background. But I am based in the East Coast of the United States, near Boston. And I have had pretty much my whole career working at nonprofit organizations, or my current organization, which is a social enterprise, which I think is both helpful and challenging, right? First off, working at organizations with whom's mission and tools and sort of services I personally align with and think bring value to the world, I think is helpful for sort of self-care, mental health, aligning your work with your values. At the same time, that can also be a challenge, right? That you throw yourself into the work and feel like everything has a sense of urgency. I personally definitely have a high anxiety level at a current state and naturally. And I think I've spent a lot of the last few years working through that and how I can adjust my work and my personal life to sort of account for that. And some very I've learned actually in my current role a lot of very practical, simple tools to do. So I started really thinking through if I was worried about work, particularly why was I worried about it? Would this even matter in 5 days? Would it matter in 5 weeks? Would it matter in 5 months? To sort of help prioritize and assess what I'm actually working on, and then realign my work sort of to match. So I at this point, I'm much better at not sweating the small stuff than I was a number of years ago in my career. And to Daniel's point, I think I consciously, when I was selecting, applying to jobs, looking at organizations that would allow me to not sort of sweat small stuff, but also have some work-life balance and flexibility in my role. So looking at how leadership works at my organization to model those sort of behaviors, how I work with my boss to prioritize both my work life and my personal life, which I realize is a great privilege that I've been able to set that up. And not everyone is able to do so. And it was quite a bit by design. And I asked a lot of hard questions before I took my current role. Once again, a big privilege to be able to have that time to be able to do it. But if you have that ability, I encourage you to do so. And then, on real basics, I really have gotten much better over time on using my flexibility at work to do real basic self-care, go for a walk and see a tree outside in nature during the day and not live in a cubicle all day. Being able to, eat meals at the appropriate time and that sort of real core basics that is not always possible in different people's, jobs. And I can't, there are days where that's more challenging than others, but making sure over the course of a month or a week that I have some flexibility to be able to, refill my cup, so to speak, even during the workday. And once again, not everyone can do that every day, but thinking through how you can sort of do many things during the day or week can, I think, be helpful as well.
Thank you, Lauren, very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Ertla, may I ask you to jump in?
Yes, hello everyone. Hi, I'm Ertla. I work for CBM UK, or Global Disability Inclusion. My role is particularly mental health focused. I'm mental health coordinator at CBM UK, and I worked in the field of mental health for a long time, like I think everyone here in the panel today. So I think where I probably particularly struggled looking after taking care of myself, which is maybe no surprise, is after having children, particularly after having my second child. I think I really struggled, and now looking back, so my children at the moment are 10 and 8, so it's been a few years, but really just struggling to look after myself, and maybe having to find a different way of working. I think you often hear the kind of maybe picture being presented as, maybe mothers particularly can be uber efficient and kind of do things very quickly, and, because they're getting everything finished before pickup time. And I wished I was that mother, but I'm not. And maybe my way of working in the past was it could take me a while to focus on something. But then when I did, I would just keep on working into the night, and all of a sudden that wasn't a reality anymore. So I think it has been, a journey, and I'm nowhere near to having figured it out. I'm looking forward to some tips from others during our breakup sessions, but slowly trying to figure out what to do, because I know that there are things like exercise and that help me, but it's very hard to prioritize that with everything going on. Like Lauren, I'm also appreciative of my organization, to be able to provide some flexibility. And again, I realize that that's maybe a privileged position to be in, but things like modeling toil, or sort of time off if I've been traveling. So, I do travel quite a bit for my work, and, that having that, just knowing that that's a given. When I come back, I will have a few days off where I can catch up with family, is very important. Maybe my latest kind of decision that definitely or is very linked to kind of having more time to look after myself is that we've been thinking of moving so closer to where my work is, and trying to cut my commute at the moment, which is 2 hours. I don't go into the office every day, but that will be a huge sort of, it's hard to move family and children to change schools and all of that, but actually thinking in the long run that is going to be a better balance for all of us. So yeah, those are some initial thoughts from me. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Ertla, very much for sharing that. It gives a great insight into that juggle of family life and work and everything in between. Daisy, do jump in.
Hi, everyone. I am Daisy Rosales. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Brio, and we work with social organizations all over the world to design mental health and well-being promotion programs. I feel like the field of social change really struggles with this question of how do we uphold this vision of flourishing and justice and well-being and change that we want to see for the people that we serve, while remaining integrated and whole as human beings. And for me, it has shown up very concretely. A number of years ago, I had a medical procedure for which I was not sufficiently sedated. And so it turned into a medical trauma. And what I didn't realize was that when my body was stressed, when I was feeling really overburdened, the pain would come back. So I've struggled with chronic pain. And one of the things that has really helped me actually about this pain showing up is that it tells me when I need to pay attention to my body and what is happening inside of me. One of the things that I think can be really helpful when we notice these reactions that we're having, whether it is for you in form of physical pain, whether you get sick or you kind of feel a sense of nausea, or even if it's just like thoughts and feelings that are kind of like running through and not leaving you alone. I think it's really helpful to pay attention to that. One of the things that I've learned with chronic pain is not turning toward it with a sense of toughness and anger, like, oh my God, why are you back again? I can't do this right now. But actually toward that pain with a sense of compassion and kindness. And So whatever it is that shows up for you, I'd encourage shifting the way that you respond to some of those tough experiences with the same kindness that you're bringing to all the people that you're serving. So that's kind of the shift that I hope the entire social change world will take toward our vulnerability and our own pain, so that we can include ourselves in this vision of flourishing that we have for everyone else.
Thank you, Daisy, very much indeed for that, for sharing that. Very much appreciate that. For myself, just answering the same question as I have been mercilessly putting to all of you. I go right the way back to the first organization I started. I'm a serial social entrepreneur, so I've started a number in my life. And the first one I started was in 1978. And it was an organization, and is still an organization, concerned with well-being, horticulture, gardening, and the therapeutic benefits of doing gardening. And I was, of course, a young social entrepreneur in those days, and I felt I was pretty good at the job. And eventually we had an away day. It was my first away day with a staff team, and so I was looking forward to it. And we had a facilitator, which we kind of could afford one. That was already quite a good deal. And the facilitator said, I would like everybody to draw a picture that epitomizes the organization and put yourself in it. So it was a picture of each individual drawing, each individual person doing drawing. And they had to epitomize themselves in this organization, which we had created together, and which still goes on today. So one woman, a very important colleague, drew a Rolls Royce. So I thought, wow, that's brilliant, that's really good. And then she drew herself underneath the wheels of the Rolls Royce, being run over by this car. And so that was a hell of a shock. It was because I had really thought that the organization was like a Rolls Royce. And then at the same time, I got this big shock. I would say it was a personal setback in a sense, as to the way in which she felt basically overworked. I mean, and terribly overworked. Well, that's not so new in the field of social entrepreneurship. And it's particularly not new for employees, let alone the founder. There's a different vibe. In the sense, both work hard, but the context is different. And so I actually had quite a depression at that point. I actually went into a real questioning of my ability and so on. And I was lucky in two ways. I was lucky in that I had, and still have, I'm glad to say, a wife who could take me in hand. We've been married 54 years now, 55 coming up in August, and I dare not forget the date. So she took me in hand and ran me through what had been achieved and so on and so forth, and gave me a bit of space. And then the other was a good mentor who was also our funder, in fact, but an excellent mentor. And I was able to talk it through. And so I came through. But it was a hell of a lot of learning, I can tell you, which I was then able to take forward to lesser or greater extent success in successive organizations that I've started. I just wanted to give you a quick heads up. We're going to be going into a breakout in a minute, just so that we can invite the whole group to share some of these thoughts and questions that I'm asking this small team here. And incidentally, this team, I should have said at the beginning, this team is actually a substantial part of the mental health collaboration leadership team. And so that's why they are here in front of you today, because they give leadership to this collaboration over the years that we've been going, with now over 132 members or organization members, which is brilliant. So I'd like just to ask a couple of you before we do that, what's stopping you from taking care of yourself what might you need to put in place? I'll open it up to the four of you and just ask if anyone would like to jump in. If you wouldn't like to, then I might ask one of you to volunteer. So do please give this a moment. What's stopping you from taking care of yourself? And what might you need to put in place? This can be historical, of course. It doesn't have to be something that's happening right now. This could be something that you have done in the past. Would you like to have a go at that, one of you? Ertla, why don't you jump in, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you. Probably the first one, what is stopping me from taking care of myself? I think often it's a matter of time and, feeling often, when you've had a little bit of breathing space, maybe you've been on holiday or something, you come back and you put in place kind of more self-care. You think, no, I need to make sure that I have time to, whatever it is, exercise, meet friends. And those things can kind of then slip as you get more overwhelmed with workload and all of that. So I think that can be a key challenge with kind of just the busy life.
I think for me, one of the things that I have realized over the years is that taking care of yourself is something that you have to work at. I guess I've realized this now pretty well. So, for example, I'm now involved in a group of social entrepreneurs who meet with a Zen Buddhist priest, and he takes us through a meditation, and he offers that, bless his heart, free of charge every week. We meditate for half an hour together. He leads the meditation, and then he releases us back into the world. So it's not a great imposition on my time. It's something that I can put into the diary, And I think that's a very important feature of the thing. Actually working on it oneself consistently. Lauren, you were nodding there. Did you want to jump in?
I think your point about time and scheduling, I think both resonated with me. I also have children and a spouse and busy lives and whatnot. So that's always a challenge. But I think what you said, Chris, about scheduling things is actually super helpful. I find if I sign up for some sort of commitment, I'm more apt to do exercise or meditation and whatnot. And it's easy to drop off, right? I find once I miss one or two, then it's easy to keep missing them, which is a challenge that I face. But I do like the idea of keeping things scheduled. And one of the challenges I've had, I keep meaning to do, I should go for a walk more each week, right? Just out and about, and ideally with a friend, because I've got some social interaction and some, light exercise, and how amazing. And it's what's stopping me, actually, the same thing that's stopping for all of us, is that all of my friends and sort of colleagues also have equally busy scheduling. So trying to align with something on the books, I've been constantly trying to get a scheduled time so that we actually do it. But everyone just keeps having things pops up. And I can't say I have a really great solution for that, but I think that's some of the thing that's stopping is constantly changing schedules. It's hard, because I tend to like routine and have just, everyone being so busy is also a challenge as well, if we're talking about, filling your cup in a social, social sort of way.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lauren, for that. I think,
I could,
yeah, Daniel, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just a couple of things that sparked off. One, when you were talking, Chris, about you coming through that difficult period. I think something I always keep in mind is this quote, which says, a difficult day, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it is, grief, is like a dark, stormy day, right? And the storm will come, and the clouds will pass, the dark clouds will pass, but you are the blue sky, and we always got to remember that. So that's something that I always keep in mind. And the second is that concept of anchors. I love visualization, clearly. So I kind of visualize myself as a tree, and my roots and my anchors, what are those? Right. So for me, it's the meds, the allopathy, the Ayurveda. My second is kind of my family and close relationships. The third is all of my well-being practices, and the fourth is purposeful work. And then when I have those anchors really strong, then it allows me to kind of, blossom in a way. So that just came to mind as we were talking.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel, very much for that. Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think this is probably a good moment for us to do a breakout. Irene and I have been corresponding in the background, getting this ready. She's going to put us into breakouts. She's going to make sure that one of us, 5, are in a breakout with you. We'll be basically working on the same questions, so it's not as if we need to be thinking about different questions. So that's what's been difficult about taking care of yourself, and how do you see this playing out at your organization? And then if there's time, what's stopping you from taking care of yourself, and what might you need to put in place? We're now just about at the half hour, and I suggest that we give ourselves 15 minutes in the breakout, and then when we come back, we'll have 15 minutes just to mop up and finish on top of the hour. I know that Catalyst is very keen that we finish on time because they have other sessions beginning, and Maria is here to pull the plug if we don't. So that will be important. Irene, are you ready to break us out? Yeah, big thumb up. Thank you. And thank you. Welcome back to friends. Some are still coming back. Have you lost some of them, Irene, along the way?
I think they want to take advantage of the 10 seconds. It's so interesting what they're talking that they always want to stay longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel. Welcome back. Lauren, welcome.
I'm also back.
We didn't lose anyone.
Thank you, Clemens. No, we're pretty much okay. We've got most people with us. We didn't leave them lying around in room 101 or whatever it may be. I think this is great. I think we're all back. Are we all back now, Irene? Maria, thank you. So we've got just a few minutes left before we finish, some 15. And so this is just a good time to be able to start a reflection. I think, Maria or Irene, I think I'll ask you to unspotlight me so I can get a better sense of the room. That would be helpful if you would. And also because having told you the story of my messing up in my first organization, I need to demonstrate humility rather than being on the screen. So thank you very much for that. We had a very precious conversation in my own group, which I will share in a minute, but Daniel, how did it go in your group?
Precious is a good word for us too. I felt it was a nice, safe, beautiful space. We talked about many things, including, getting into it with the mission, kind of the challenges, then beating us into a pulp, and, just needing the self-awareness, resonating with what Daisy said about the body, and, some of the values that we hold dear, which is humility and wholeness, in a way. Some of the structural stuff, whether it's, depression in women being higher, whether it's mental health funding being lesser when it's actually much needed. So lots of different topics that we sort of thing. And we kind of ended with a quote from Hamilton, which says being we should be humble about this stuff, which says who lives, who dies, and who tells our story, is probably something we should think about as we do this work.
Beautiful. That was absolutely lovely. Lauren, where was it with you?
Hi, yeah, no, we had I think also a lovely, honest conversation. I think some of the things that came up, without going into too much details, are learning to be able to say no to things, like the ability to say, I need to take a break, or I can't commit to this right now, is a challenge that I think a number of us in our group have either tried to overcome or are overcoming. So not taking on too much, and sort of being conscious of where we're spending our energy, both with others and at work, and really thinking about that. I think a lot of us let time, energy, space get away from us, over the course of time. So thinking about that as well. What were some of the things? Oh, and a bit about getting alone time. A number of us, number of the group said that they sort of really enjoy occasional stretches of time, whether it's a number of hours or a day or two, alone, where they don't have to, talk or have responsibilities to others, at least not tangible ones, in order to sort of refresh as well.
Thank you
If
so
anyone
much.
in the groups wants to add anything, feel free to put in the chat or raise your hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do feel free. Bob, by the way, I sent you a direct message. Maybe you could just answer that for me. Just while we're, so thank you very much, Daniel and Lauren. And Daisy, where did you jump?
I was really grateful for the conversation that I had with our group. A few highlights that I'm taking away are, one, I think everyone in our group serves a role in which they are holding space for other people. And I think when we are doing that, it's really challenging to offer that same kind of space to ourselves. Whether we are able to actually participate in the spaces that we're facilitating, or to find other spaces where someone might be holding that for us, and seeing us as ourselves as more than just, the room that welcomes everybody else. There's an evolution in terms of what our concerns are and what barriers we're facing over time. So sometimes that's guilt, sometimes that's anxiety over things falling apart, sometimes that's just a sense of navigating into new waters and not being sure where we're going. And so noticing what those concerns and emotional barriers are can be really helpful. And to lean into that, people talked about becoming more present, entering the present moment, and also taking time to pause and reflect, and not just stopping to kind of, do sensory deprivation, but actually to take that time and space to explore and be curious, like, what is going on inside me? What really matters to me right now? And how can that shape the way I show up? So those were some of the ideas that we had.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. These are really rich conversations, aren't they? This is brilliant. Ertla.
Hello. Yeah, the same. Our group also had a good conversation, very rich, very precious. All those words apply. We talked about giving ourselves permission to take a break, how that can be difficult when you feel like the need. I think all of us in that group were working in the mental health space. We talked about, a range of things, loneliness, associated with home working, COVID. Maybe also importantly, we talked about seeking help. And, so I think that's maybe a point that I think all of us, it's good to keep in mind with, we've talked about lots of tips, whether that's going out for a walk or doing things that we enjoy. But of course, sometimes it's becomes too much for us to deal alone, and then seeking help is of course crucial. Many of us work in, again, mental health, and even though we know that on a professional level, it's important to remember that also at a personal level.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Is there anyone who would like to jump in at this stage? Just before I recognize that I have yet to report on my group, and I will. Michael, how was it for you, this conversation? Lovely to see you, by the way.
Well, it's always a pleasure to join your sessions, Chris, and thank you all to all the panelists and to the members of my breakout group. It was a really rich and rewarding conversation, and I think that Daniel really covered what we discussed, and I just wanted to share my comment about routines and rituals. I've given my organization I'm in a pre-launch phase for this organization that I'm starting to deal with these issues, to help others deal with these issues, and so the issue of routines and rituals, as you've all mentioned, I think are critical to our self-health and also for engaging communities so that they'll be more health-minded. So I'll leave it at that, Chris, and thank you again for running this session and for all the rich discussions that we've had.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much, Michael. In my session, we gathered together and we had some very deep conversation, which I would like to share a little bit with you. One of the reasons why I wanted to have a direct message with Bob was because I wanted to get his permission to talk about one or two things that he had talked about. And so, if I may, Bob, Bob has very recently lost his partner, and so that was a very significant and very important sharing which he gave to us. I think it's only 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, Bob.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to ask everybody to do is just to sit for a minute and just send your love to Bob. Just hold him in a way which I think only we on this group can do at this particular moment. So Bob, we're just going to sit for a minute, maybe close our eyes. That might be a nice thing to do. And just send you, Bob, all our love at this time for you. Bob, we're sending our love to you, and we are doing our best to hold you in this moment when it is obviously so difficult for you, and you described to us the process by which this all had occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. If I could say briefly, I didn't know if I'd have the courage to be able to speak today, but I appreciate your work, Chris, and all of you. You've held safe space here, and how do you do that on a Zoom call with people you don't really know, but you've done it, and I felt safe enough to just share, and I deeply appreciate that, and I send my love back to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, very much. And thank you for being the wonderful person that you are. So just in finishing, we had a couple of other important pieces that came up in our session. Clemens, for example, was talking about his life as a runner and the way in which that has, as it were, buoyed him up through the creation of an organization and the ending of it in due course. And now he finds himself, as it were, running towards a future which he is at this time defining. And so that's a wonderful metaphor, I think, that we are all moving forward, running towards a future that we have yet to define and which will define itself as it comes upon us. All I need to do now really is to thank my wonderful co-leaders of the mental health collaboration who've been with me pretty much since we started the mental health collaboration. I forget exactly when it was, but it was some time ago. And we've held many discourses and webinars, and I think we're getting better at it, and we enjoy being together more, which is great. I want to thank all of you for being with us today, and of course, as has already been done, a special thank you to you, Bob, for being so vulnerable and with us today. That's very important. And I want to thank you, Maria Ule, and you, Irene, for being such wonderful supporters from Catalyst, the organization which we're all affiliated. So, just with 1 or 2 minutes to spare, I'd like to thank you all for being with us and wish you a wonderful rest of day. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.